All right, so as we begin the development of the Fontania site, I wanted to just quickly go over one of the most critical things in starting to code, which is the file setup. So we've got our comp here. This is what we're going to end up building. We have files that we've given students, so you all will find things like comps and planning. So you're going to want to create a folder on your own computer. What you name this folder is really up to you. It's not as necessary to be strict with the naming of this folder, but everything inside of it, we're going to want to follow web naming conventions just for the sake of linking. So inside of this folder, we need a folder for our images, which you all were provided, so you can include that. And then we do have another folder for our CSS files. Okay, so getting started, one of the first things we need to do is just create that file. I find most students have created HTML files, created CSS files, but sometimes this part, for some reason, the very first time they do it for a project, they feel stuck. So we want to just walk you through it real quick. So we're going to create a new file. I'm using brackets right now, but you could use any text editor. So we're just going to go ahead and say File New. And before you do anything, we're just going to go ahead and say File, Save As, and then we'll just go save this in our site. So we're going to put this inside of our root directory, which is like the main folder. And so we'll name it index.html. Now, again, it does have to be named that because this is essentially the home page. So if we put this up on a server, that is the name that it's going to be looking for. So we'll say save. And then I do have some code kind of pre-created. I'm just going to copy it in there, and I'll explain it in just a second. So what we have to start out, obviously, is this core HTML and CSS. It's really critical for us to have this before we code anything else. It should be pretty standard for any HTML page. But before we can actually get too much further, we do need to have a little bit of content in here as well. And we'll just type in the name of the site. Okay, so we've got a title, which is the name of the site, and then I've got an H1 that I have also named the same as the name of the site. And then the link to our style sheet, this is something that you do need to do for any of your files moving forward. So external style sheets, I feel like we have done before, but I want to just quickly show you again how we can link those two together. So before we do, go ahead and save real quick. And let's just see what we've got so far. So it's nothing but text, right? And I can leave this over here on the background. And we'll go ahead and create one more new file. Now this new file, we're going to go ahead and say File, Save As. And when we save it this time, we're going to save it in our CSS folder. So again, just keep everything lowercase, no spaces, no special characters. Style.css is a pretty common one that a lot of people use. Now, because we have organized our files this way, I want to make sure you all understand how we're going to link to our files. So a lot of students will link and they'll just type in the file name. But unfortunately, that does not work, and we're going to test the theory real quick. We'll just go ahead and put in the body tag in our CSS, and let's change the background color. I'll just change it. I believe that's a gray. Okay. So what we will do now is open this file up, and you can see nothing's happening. Okay. So before you go too far in coding, we want to make sure the HTML and CSS are talking to one another. So to ensure that, this link here has to be correct. So if we take a look at our file structure again, if I'm going from the HTML file into this CSS folder, I actually have to type the CSS folder first, and then test it out and see. Now you can see that gray has changed. Okay, so with that said, this is just the very basics of setting up your file. You're going to want to test often. You can refresh. A lot of the times from Bracket, it has a live preview that for the most part is pretty helpful. So you want to set your files up before we go too much further forward, and then we'll keep on walking you through the rest of the process so you can build this site.